Good evening, it's Robert Sidell, and it's the Gateway Show on every Sunday night, 6 to 7 p.m. I'll do this right here a little bit. And it's on the number one talk station in Las Vegas. I'm also simulcasting. Actually, I'm keep getting a little bit more advanced to what I'm doing. I'm simulcasting on YouTube and on Facebook at the same time. So now you can actually watch me on Facebook and also on YouTube, either way you want it, directly. It's actually a live stream, and then later on you can watch. I'll put copies on both sites, so you can watch the program later on as well. So it's kind of fun. I have to be honest. I give all the credit to my son who does all the technology on this. It's quite advanced to have to do it to be able to send both to the radio and two different sites. And in fact, I'll probably be simulcasting on X as of next week also. But I want you to know it's truly a pleasure to be here with you. I just got back from a beautiful wedding in San Diego, La Jolla area, and it just reminds me of the magic of life. And my wife and I were down there, and it was funny. We because we're in California, and a lot of you know there's a very valuable lottery right now, unless it's already won, which I kind of doubt it has been. I think it's like up to $1.8 billion or something. So if you win it, it's going to be very changing of your life. And so we bought a few tickets yesterday, and so my wife turned it into kind of a fun mental exercise. What would we do if we won the lottery? What kinds of things would we change in our lives? And at first I was kind of, she kept asking me, well, what would you do this? What would you do that? But then I started to realize this is kind of a fun exercise. It's kind of fun because it gets you creatively thinking. What would you change in your life? How would you like to change your life? So whatever you're doing out there and listening to me right now, I want you to know, in a very large and real sense, the second you were born, you won the lottery. You just did. And this life has so much more opportunities waiting for us all the time. And if we could just see it. And that's, of course, that's the challenge, right? It's always a challenge. The problem is I'll do something here, hold on. What happens is that we end up getting so focused on our life the way it is, we don't start to realize the other choices and possibilities that we have facing us. And so what went through my mind today, and since we started that process, and I try to do that all the time anyway, but I've really up-leveled it a whole level. And there's a famous saying, you might have heard this before, which is, life is a banquet, but most poor fools are starving to death. Or a way that Ralph Waldo Emerson put it, he said, many people live lives of quiet desperation. So the question is, what my dream and my goal from this very show tonight for you that are listening is that whatever's happening in your life, this could be a point where you flip a lever inside of yourself. You turn on the switch of creativity, of life, and you start to realize, hey, you know what? There's something magical happening. I'm part of this journey that is so far beyond my understanding, and I can make magic happen. I can open up to possibilities I never imagined were possible, and then life would suddenly become that banquet that the quote person who wrote that quote would be talking about, or Ralph Waldo Emerson, the unexamined life is not worth living. That's also what he said, the unexamined life. So my invitation to each of you tonight is to join with me and look honestly at your life. Look and see what's going on in your world, and be willing to open yourself to the idea that right now, at this very moment, you're in the middle of a magical, miraculous, divine experience. It's infinitely more powerful, more magical, more wondrous than we normally ever think of. And I think that's what really hits me. It's that we have so much more creativity waiting for us, so much more possibilities, and yet we get stuck. We get stuck in limitations. We get stuck in just recycling the same patterns over and over and over again. And then suddenly, at some point in our lives, we start to realize that we're getting older. And as we get older, then we are in a situation where, we may not be able to do as much. So I think we each want to be able to open ourselves to new possibilities, and no matter what you're doing, for each one of us. That's what we need to do for each one of us. Whoops. Oh, I think I may have just managed to knock something offline here. I'm not sure. Hold on one second here. Oh, no, it's not. So that's what I want to focus on tonight. If you want to join with me in that adventure, how could you live your life more creatively? How could you make your life something so magical that you really would be willing to, your life would seem better than any fantasy? Many, many years ago, I thought, I like, by the way, I like going to places like Disneyland when I can because I find them inspiring. People seem to be happy, and I like that. But what I want to say to you is that many, many people in their lives get so caught into routines that they can't imagine that their own life could be better than any of the fantasies we watch. And I'm guilty of this too. You watch TV shows and this and that, and it can be fun. Listen, TV can be fun. But what if your life was better than the best movie you ever saw? What would happen in your life if your life was better than the best movie you've ever seen? And then on top of it, what if you realized that the best movie you ever saw, that you are the co-creator of this dream, not this dream, that this reality that you're in right now. You're the co-creator with God. And there's no limitation on the possibilities upon us. And this has been a message that's been taught by many great teachers, including Jesus. He said, you'll do greater things than me. And he laid out paths and methods by which we could do that. So my invitation to each of you, no matter what's going on in your life tonight, dare to know that right now, you, if you choose, could be the beginning of the very best days of your life, of your entire time on this earth. Does that seem like a stretch? Does that seem exciting? Does that possibility seem exciting? Would you be willing to have that be true? Would that be worth it to you? See, that's what I think we all want to open ourselves to. That possibility that right this second, there's friends waiting to know you. You realize that there's friends waiting to know you right now. There are people that you make a huge difference to. There are that you don't even realize you make a difference to. Today I had a little bit of fun. When I got back into Vegas, I went stop by. There's a Mexican store in town called Mariana's, and if you like custom-made guacamole, this is the place to go. They actually make it for you exactly the way you want it on the weekends. There's somebody in there, and they put in, if you want it spicy, they'll make it spicy. Whatever you want in it, they'll put in it, and it's fantastic. It really, really is. But I thought what was interesting is that a lady said to me, she goes, "Where's your son? I haven't seen you both for a while." Well, I hadn't been in there for like 3 or 4 months, for a lot of different reasons. And I was out of town a lot this summer. And so suddenly, here's a lady, and that, some way or another, our life is touching hers. I wasn't even aware of it. And then I was at the cash register leaving, and the lady asked me the same thing. She goes, "Well, I haven't seen you for a while." And I asked her if I'd given her my miracle card, which all of you have seen anyway. I'll show it to you on the screen here. I love to give this out. It's just fun to do, So hopefully that's giving us a focus there. But anyway. Okay, there it is. Perfect. So I said, yeah, she goes, "Yeah, I have." But she goes, "Could you give me another one?" Now, so here's a place that I literally haven't been there for 3 or 4 months. But when I show up, obviously for her it's fun. Getting a card is fun that says "Expect a Miracle," and suddenly it's exciting. So you know what I realized is, and I know it's true for you too, wherever you are, you make a difference. Wherever you go, you make a difference. You may not think you do. You may think it's just you. It's good old you. But you know what? Wherever you are, you're making a difference. So so tonight I just want to stimulate this whole show to the idea that your life can be a magical, miraculous experience. Let me put a little bit of music on. I'll put on a little bit of piano music here. So let's just do a couple things here before I go to the break. Take a deep breath right now with me. And just breathe in the oxygen that surrounds us. Just let it flood through your body with health and happiness. Now let's exhale. As you exhale, just feel all the burdens of your life lifting off your shoulders. All the uncertainty, all the doubts that you might have. Wherever you are, leaving you right now. Let's take a breath in one more time. Breathe in that beautiful air that gives you life. I had a problem in my lungs about a month ago. And trust me, I couldn't breathe very well. And through the modern miracle of science, it was fixed. But if it hadn't been, who knows what would have happened in my life. So when I say breathe in and appreciate it, I mean it. It's a gift to be able to breathe and receive that energy that lets your organs and your body work. So let's take it one more time right now. A nice deep breath. Breathe it in and let the life force come into you. And realize that you are a miraculous being in a miraculous world. And that the full blank slate of existence lies in front of you. All we have to do is let go of our stories and our story of the past. So we're going to go to a break now. And here's what I want to say to you during the break. Stay with me, and I'll be with you broadcasting on Facebook and also on YouTube. And the rest of you on the radio, stay tuned. I'll be back in just a moment. This is Robert Sidell. I'm kind of experimenting a little bit here. If there's any messages on here, I don't know exactly how it works. Like I say, it's kind of funny actually. I've got this new system that's so simulcasting in more than one place, but I can't see your comments very well. In fact, I can't see them at all at the moment. So I'm going to have to sort that out also. But those of you who are there on Facebook, I know who's usually is there. I just want you to know I love and support you, and thank you for your support for me. So I want you just to think right now. Imagine you stepped into a magical kingdom. The magic of reality was bestowed upon you. How would you change your life? What would you do? What kind of things would you do in your life? What would you start with your health? Maybe you'd start with your health. As you get older, sometimes that becomes an issue. Sometimes even when we're younger. Like I said, I had my health adventure about a month ago. I literally had to go to the hospital and they worked on me. Cleared some things out. But what I want, and now I'm feeling great. So I want you to know, my friends, right now, open your eyes to see the world around you. Fall in love with life again. Imagine how you felt when you're 5 years old, 10 years old. Think about, and if you're a woman, think about your first crush on a guy. Think about the first time you were falling in love. And the same is true for you. If you're a guy, think about the first time you had a crush on a woman. I can remember that very well in my life. It's funny. I think most of us can. But think of the magic that surrounds you. Think of the magic that surrounds you and the wonder. You are surrounded by magic. You are divine and miraculous. The breath of God, it flows through you as your breath. God plants ideas in your mind and soul and spirit, not so that they'll be forgotten, but rather that you'll reach out and begin to make them happen. Do something here. Something else here. Hold on. A second here. Here we're going back on right now. Good evening, my friends. Actually, I'll switch. I know that I've played this music before. Some people said it's a little hard to understand. So I want to go back to different music. I kind of like it actually, but for some reason when people are listening, some people said it was hard for them to hear. So imagine if somebody came along with a magic wand and tapped you on the head, and suddenly scales came off of your eyes, and you saw the magic and wonder that you were surrounded by. And imagine that not just you saw it, but you realized that you're surrounded everywhere by opportunity and new possibilities. Love and enjoyment and dreams and fulfillment. Adventures that you can't even imagine, even right now. And that what God is waiting for you to say is, I'm open. I'm open. You know, I think that one of the best ideas I've ever heard is that you're not blessed by God because you're suddenly so good, because nobody's perfect. You're blessed by God when you quit saying to God, I'm not good enough. When you quit pushing God away and saying, I'm not good enough. When you're willing to say, God, you know what? Not my will, but yours. When you're willing to say, God, I'm going to get out of the way and let your magic be done in my life. When I had the health condition I was facing about a month ago, I'd gone into a small hospital up in the mountains in Southern California, and they did a couple little things on me, and then they said, well, you know what? You need to go to the hospital, a real hospital. And I said, well, can I drive? They said, no. And matter of fact, we've already ordered a helicopter for you. I'm just laughing at this. So a helicopter showed up in about 10 minutes. So I had just enough time to pick up a couple things, have them delivered from my house to where I was. And within 30 minutes of having showed up at the hospital, I was climbing into a helicopter. And I wasn't even climbing in. I was carried into it on a stretcher. And that was a weird experience by itself because it wasn't really a very big helicopter. And my feet almost hit the front windshield of the helicopter. So I guess this must be for people that aren't super tall. But the next thing you know, we were taking off. And you know, I didn't have any idea what was going to happen in my life. Would I ever see my family again? Would I ever see my friends again? Would I ever do my radio show again? I mean, any of these different things. I didn't know. And you know what? I realized that the only thing I really had at that moment was my relationship to God. That's all I had. And then I was flown down and we flew down to this hospital, which was the perfect place for me to go, and landed on the roof on a big bullseye. It was kind of a fun experience. And then I was taken in. They started checking me out. But the thing that really hit me all this time, I thought, I'm totally in God's hands. I'm totally in God's hands. And here's the thing that really also hit me. I realized it's always that way. It's just we aren't normally aware of it. We just sort of push it aside. All of us. Our destiny is in God's hands. So the question is for each one of us, my friends, what are we willing to make of our story? So for me, somehow God got me to the right hospital, the right time, in the right place. And a very nice group of young men ended up working on me and spent several hours working on me that evening, on Sunday evening. Probably be about 5 weeks ago now. And they took care of what needed to be taken care of. Because it's new technology. This technology that they worked on me on did not even exist before. I mean, they told me in the last 5 years they've made huge improvements. And it was kind of funny. I sort of felt like it was like a video game or something. Because that's how they were approaching it, sort of. But my real point, though, is I had a very, very, very nice nurse, and I said a prayer together. And the hospital is actually sponsored by the Seventh-day Adventists, which is a Christian sect, an organization. And so she was a member of that church, said a very nice prayer. And I suddenly realized, you know what? my destiny is totally in God's hands. And I think we just it's easy to be in denial of that. For any one of us, we don't know when the time comes when we will be saying goodbye on this mortal plane. So what I want to say to you each, now that doesn't mean you won't have a reunion in heaven. I'm not going to say that isn't going to happen. I personally accept Christ and feel that inner assurance and encourage that for all of you who are open to it. But I am going to say to you, there's two truths in life. One is we all have to say goodbye someday to this world. And we're so used to it, right? That's the funny part about life. We're so used to our lives and our friends and dealing with this and listening to that politician and what he said that and she said that. And it's very easy to get kind of annoyed and frustrated and upset all the time. And then when I was there, I realized, what do I care about any of that stuff? I could be having to say goodbye today. It could be over for me. And so it just totally changed everything for me. And I realized I'm not in charge of any of that stuff. I'm spending all this time thinking about it. I'm not in charge of any of it. But I can and could pray and have faith and trust in God. And that's what I want to say to each one of you, wherever you're at. You're actually, you see, I think sometimes we think God is somewhere else, in heaven or somewhere else. But actually, what really hit me strongly when I was in that hospital, I said, especially when I said this prayer with this one lady, is that God was around me right then, at that moment. And I realized that even if it may not be so obvious, that's always true all the time anyway. So that's what I want each one of you to see in your life. Wherever you are in your life right now, God is surrounding you. God's Holy Spirit enfolds you. God handles your life. God has a plan for you. Are you willing to be open to that plan? Are you willing to set aside your unworthiness? Where you think, well, no, but if God doesn't know me that well, really, if God really knew me, he wouldn't be there for me. I'm not saying we consciously think that, but sometimes unconsciously we think that. So my friends, whatever's happening in your life, what I want to say to you is that dare to know that the infinite intelligence of God's ability and power is with you right now. Just for the fun of it, I went back and read some of the book of Job this morning out of the Old Testament of the Bible. He's the guy that everything was taken from him, if you don't know the story. And he lost everything in a short period of time. And God allowed this to happen. You have to read the whole book of Job to understand why. But, well, here's the short story. So Satan, or the devil, whatever you want to call it, goes to God and says, Job, you think he loves you so much, but really he only loves you because he has a good life. And if he didn't have the things that were good, he wouldn't love you. And God says, I don't think that's true. This is actually in the book of Job. And so Satan says, well, if you really believe that, let me torment him and take away his things, and we'll see if he really still loves you. And God says, okay, yes, I will let you do that. You can't destroy him, but I will let you do that. So it's kind of a weird story. I mean, this book was written like 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, but so God says, yeah, I'll let you do that. So sure enough, Job ends up losing his family and becomes poor, and everybody's claiming he's, a bad person and things like that. And so his whole life falls apart. And he got to the point where he said, God, why'd you ever have me be born? He goes, I won't curse you, but I just wonder why I was ever born, if this is what was going to happen to me. And all these people would keep coming up to him. And this is the way life is, I'm sure, even today, right? Coming up to him and saying, why don't you admit the truth, Job? You brought this upon yourself. You know that you did. This wouldn't have happened otherwise, because God is just, and if you hadn't brought this on you, it would not have happened. Now, it's funny, we the listeners, the ones who are reading the book, know that actually Job did nothing. That this was an experiment that God was letting unfold. And so, but Job didn't know that. And the other people didn't know it. So all these people were coming and talking to him and spending these long conversations. Why don't you be honest about it? You have been doing some bad things, and these bad things brought bad stuff upon you. If you just admitted it, it'd be better. Of course, he wouldn't admit it because he didn't think he was. And these people kept coming to him saying all this stuff. And so finally, and he's praying to God. And finally, God starts to talk to him out of this big vacuum, in the darkness of the night, or not even the darkness, but just starts talking to him and saying, you've been saying these things about me and you've been asking all these questions. Well, so let me talk to you. And so God says, do you know how this earth was formed? Do you know how the stars were formed? Do you know how the sky was created? Do you know how the animals and the man and woman were created? Do you know how any of this was done? Do you know how the ocean was made? Do you know how the land was kept separate from the ocean? Do you have any answers for any of that? And Job says, well, really, no, I don't know any of that. You're absolutely right. So God just keeps talking to him like that. And finally, it's a fun, to me it's fun. Not everybody might not find it fun, but to me it is. Finally, God says to Job, he goes, well, he says, the truth is those people talking to you, they don't know what they're talking about. And it's not your fault. And I'm going to restore everything to you. And not only that, but way more than you ever had. So then he goes to these other guys and says, you need to make a sacrifice and you need to admit that you were wrong to Job. So God sets everything straight at the end. But the point being is that in this situation, he had to decide if he was going to maintain his faith in God when it seemed like everything was lost. He did maintain his faith in God. He wasn't very happy. He did talk honestly to God about his feelings and fears and worries and anxieties and sadness, but he never condemned or, he never cursed God. So in the end, God stood by him and restored everything to him. So I'm hoping that we are not tested like that, but the lesson is there for each one of us. If we can just remember, don't let the world talk you out of your dreams and your truth. See, these people were trying to talk him out of believing in himself and believing in God, and trying to make him think he was a bad person, when in reality he wasn't. So don't let anybody talk you out of believing that God's anything but loving and cares the best for you. This is Robert Sidell. We're going to go to a break. This is the Gateway Show. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay tuned. For those of you on YouTube and also on Facebook, stay with me. I'll be back in just a second. So my friends, what's interesting about that story, what I kind of like about the story also, is how God just really points out the obvious. What do any of us control, really? How many of us really know how this world was created? And the bottom line is we don't have any idea. Yes, I don't. How did you become a conscious, living being? How did you come into existence? How did you get the wonder and the miracle of a human eye? Or a heart, or a liver, or any part of your body, your kidneys? How did any of that come together for you? And yet magically and wonderfully, somehow, it did come together for you. And you've been living in this world, some of you, for a long time. So you were given a magnificent body, a body that allows you to grow, a body that lets you live and have adventure and love and grace and healing and wholeness on this earth. So the question is, are you going to be willing to make the most of that opportunity? You can do two things when you encounter adversity or just feelings of discouragement. You can go into a corner and just be sad. And it's okay to do that sometimes if you just feel that way. Or you can also say, yeah, I have sadness. By the way, absolutely good to confess these things to God. Let's say you're feeling kind of depressed and discouraged about life. Just confess to God. God, I love you, but I'm kind of discouraged. I'm worried. I'm scared. Where's my future leading? What's going to happen in my future? All those feelings are very natural feelings. Every one of them is natural. And I think if you're honest and speak the truth, your truth to God, only good will come to you. That's what I really believe in my heart. If you're willing to be honest, speak your truth to God, then amazing things will come to you. So for every one of us, when I got home here today, I flew back from San Diego and got here about 2 o'clock. I'm here in Las Vegas. It's a whole other world in the ocean in California. But I was thinking to myself, how do I create the wonder and magic in my life right here? What things could be exciting to me? What would be an adventure? Where can we go with our lives? What can we do with our lives? What can we do to make our lives happen? What can you do to get a new sense of beginning in your life? What can you do to become excited about your life once again? What can you do to awaken to a new beginning? How can you flip that switch tonight, right here? I'm about to go back on the air right now. Good evening, my friends. This is Robert Sidell. It's a great, great pleasure to be here with you. I just want you to know it's my honor and privilege to be here. And every time I do this show, it's always a chance for me to grow spiritually, every single time. And each one of you makes a difference to me. In some ways, we all experience many of the same things, large and small. But the question is that I really want to challenge you with tonight, and me too. How, when you were a little kid, when you were 10 or 12 years old, or 5 or 6 or 7, it didn't take a lot for you to be excited about possibilities. When I look at my little grandson, who's not quite 2 yet, he loves to play with his little cars and everything. And, life's an adventure. He doesn't have to sell himself on it being an adventure. It is an adventure. And you know what? What I'm going to suggest to you is there's still a little 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old inside of you right now. If you could kind of clean out some of the cobwebs, some of the things that have been stopping you not from believing that maybe life isn't as good as you thought it was. So tonight I invite you to just be willing to let the thing was, what would you do if you won the lottery? That's a great tool to think what you might do. And I was thinking in my life, what are some things I would do? Would I travel more? Would I go some places that would I just take more time off? Would I build some fun things? Would I get a classic car? My wife's always talking about some classic cars she might like. And it's so funny. The kind of classic car she thinks she wants now was the same kind as my first car that I had when I was 17 years old. A Chevrolet Bel Air or something. I converted one of those. And my grandmother owned it. And it's so funny that that's the car she now thinks is an exciting car. She just should have met me about 50 years ago. That's the only problem. Or 60 years ago even. Not quite. But so that's sort of a fun little fantasy for her. No, it's not a very important fantasy, but just a fun one. But what kind of things could you and I do to bring a sense of adventure back in your life again? Are there restaurants you could go to? They don't have to be expensive restaurants. They may be very inexpensive. And there's all sorts of fun little places out around in our town that you could go to. We have great selections here. Are there parks you could go to and take walks? My sister-in-law takes walks with her dog, with groups of people. What other kinds of things could you do? Could you volunteer? Maybe go into a old age home. Now, maybe that may not sound very exciting to you, but you could go in there and provide some love and support. I've done that before myself. And people find that very rewarding. What kind of things could you do? Could you read new books? Could you write a book? I'm almost finished with my latest book about marriage. I'm basically done with it. Now I just got to submit it for the next couple steps I have to do. So you see what I'm saying? What adventures could you do? Could you write a book? Could you get some new clothes? You might say, well, I don't have enough money. Well, I'll tell you what. My wife loves to go to the various different thrift shops in town, and she likes to find good bargains. And now she's got my daughter doing the same thing. And it is fun. You can get brand new clothing for a fraction of the cost. So if there's a lot of fun places in town like that. So there's one called the Assistance League. There's a few of them. My wife knows all the different ones. But a lot of churches have something like that too. So it doesn't have to be expensive. What you'd be surprised about is things don't have to be as expensive as you think. One of my good friends that I haven't had on the radio show for a while, but she was driven like 100,000 miles around the country in the last few years, in RV, traveling from one place to the next, being paid to do it. So it's an extraordinary adventure for her. So life is a constant adventure of new beginnings. What could be waiting for you? You might think you're too old, but there's so many people that started at whatever age, and suddenly things open up for them. Some of you have heard of the Hare Krishna sect. And if you went to the airports in the 80s, you probably ran into some of them. And the person who started that group left India when he was like in the late 60s. He was like 70 years old. He had no money at all. He just got on a boat and came to the United States. I think he had like $50 or something. So let's be generous, say it was worth $500 today or something. But he didn't have much. And when he got to Central Park in New York City, he just started going and chanting Hare Krishna. And suddenly a whole group of people came to him, and next thing you know, he was building temples all over. All over the world. They built Krishna temples. And that all happened with no money, starting in his late 60s, and most of it in his 70s. And he only lived till, I think, 82 or something. But during those 12 years, he accomplished more on that level than he did the whole rest of his life. Or another famous story, just to remind you of these things, is the story of Kentucky Fried Chicken with Colonel Sanders. I know a lot of you have heard the story before. He got to age 63 or 64 and realized the pension he had to live on was like, I think it was like $35 a month, but which even in the 60s wasn't very much money. Let's say that was $350 today. Or let's even be more generous, say it was $500. Whatever it wasn't enough for him to live on. So he thought, you know what I'm going to do? I have a chicken recipe. I'm going to find somebody to work on selling it. So he went all around the country. He got in an old station wagon, and he was turned down over and over and over and over again. And what I've heard is he was turned down 1,000 times. And I always think to myself, and then finally somebody said yes. And then we know the history of it. It took off, and when he was 89 years old, he had 13,000 people at his birthday party. So here's a guy at age 64 was making like nothing as a pension. He was destined to have a poor, unexciting, unpleasant retirement era. And suddenly he had an idea, and he wasn't going to give up on it. And his greatest expansion in his life happened then and through his 70s and 80s, just like this guy who started the Hare Krishna movement. And that kind of story is so common in the world. So I don't care where you're at in your life. The very best is in front of you, if you're willing to let it be in front of you. But one of the things I'm working on, and when I was in the hospital myself a month ago, one of the things I said to God in my prayers, I said, "Let thy will be done. Thy will, not mine." Because what do I really know? What do I really know? And it's worth facing that kind of thing in our lives. So for me anyway, I simply said, "God, let thy will be done in all things." And I guess it was his will for me to be here, because I'm still talking to you. But the point is, and now I'm looking at myself and saying, okay, I kind of got an extension on my life. So the question is, what can I do now? It kind of lit a little fire under me. Doesn't mean that I haven't been working on things, but now it kind of lit more of a fire. What greater things can I do? What exciting things, what contributing things can I do? What can I do to make the quality of life better on this earth? For you, for me, my family, your family, for the world. The world is so beautiful. Where I was last night at this wedding in La Jolla, I was looking out over the ocean. I saw the most magnificent sunset. I looked at this beautiful ocean and the sunset and all that, and I thought, wait a minute, this world is a heaven. What are we going to do to make it so it works better as a heaven and people can live more happily in it? What can you and I do to make it a better place? How can we learn to live in greater peace and harmony and happiness? So that's what I chose. Just really reminded me, looking out of that beautiful, beautiful ocean, and then sitting in this beautiful wedding, and this young woman, and falling in love with this young man, and their life stretched out in front of them. course, my deepest prayers is they have a very successful marriage. But you know what, my friends? When I saw all that, I thought, this life is magic. It's wonderful. But how come you and I, we can get stuck sometimes? We get stuck in the doldrums. We're not moving ahead. We're not moving ahead anywhere or anything. So when I do that exercise in your own life, if you won the lottery, how would you change your life? If you won the lottery, what would you do to change your life? What could you do to change your life? Would you travel more? Would you move to a different house? Maybe you'd stay in the same house. I know a guy who has a very successful business in town. I'm not going to mention his name. He's a friend of mine. He can live anywhere he wants, but he lives in a little tiny house. He's just in a tiny neighborhood in a little tiny house. That's all the details I can give right now. But I've talked to him about it. I said, well, I'm just curious, why are you still living there? He goes, well, I've been there all these years, and thought to myself, he told me, I opened a can of beer and sat down. I thought, I like this house. It's my house. So he's in this little tiny house in this little neighborhood. And he doesn't want to move, even though he has all the money to do whatever he wants to do. So you never know what you want to do, but you have to let your mind open to the magic and wonder of it all. And most of all, is there some way that you can open up more love in your life to the people in your world? How could you be more loving, more kind? How could you contribute more emotionally, spiritually, and physically to people? How could you learn to love yourself more? How could you learn to be more kind to yourself? That's how you can serve God. Quit pushing God away. You probably don't think of yourself as pushing God away, do you? But that's what we do sometimes. And you say, well, it couldn't be me. So that's why I'm glad. It's like, well, I could never win the lottery. I could never have this great life. Well, that's pushing God away. God can get you whatever you need for your life. This is Robert Sidell. We're going to go to a break. And when we come back, we're going to have Reverend Ernie and Reverend Janet there with us. Trying to see. I'm having some fun doing this. I'm simulcasting on YouTube and on Facebook tonight. And like I said, by next weekend, I'm going to try to be simulcasting on X also, which would be fun. That's part of my fun. And who knows, maybe it's time for me to figure out ways to get this message out farther. People hear so much negative news. Sometimes it's hard for them to believe that life can be wonderful and that God wants it to be wonderful. What about you? Do you believe God wants your life to be good? Are you willing to let God in? Are you willing to give up your defenses to God? We don't normally think of it that way, do we? But sometimes we have defenses to God. Sometimes we have got so many stories in our head that we're pushing God away. So, let's see something here. Trying to get this thing to focus a little bit. So for each one of you, my friends, I want you to be willing, if you're open to the idea. Oh, here comes Reverend Janet. Hi, Janet.
Hello. Oh, yeah, there it goes.
Perfect. Now, hopefully, Ernie will pop in a second.
Yep.
Actually, hold on. I'm going to turn off the music. So, did you have a fun weekend this weekend, Janet?
Say that?
Did you have a fun weekend? Oh, there's Ernie.
Yeah.
How you doing, Ernie?
Yep.
Hi.
All
Hi,
right.
Hi, Robert. Hi,
Now,
Janet.
Now,
Hi.
your head's... Oh, there, that's better. That's better, Ernie, because I can see your whole head now. We don't want to miss your head, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yes.
So we'll be back on the radio in just a minute here. So we're simulcasting. I'm just learning to experiment with this a little bit on YouTube and on Facebook.
Okay.
So I'll ask each one of you, what would you do if you won the lottery? What would you do? I want you to think about that, you guys. When I come back, I'll ask you each that question for a second. If you think it would change a lot, a little, or what?
I already thought about it. That's kind of what I'm talking about when I talk.
Okay.
Yes.
I think we're just about to go back on in a second. Life is an adventure, that's for sure. Somebody will win that thing one of these days. Who knows what they'll do with it?
Somebody did win a bunch.
When do they win something today?
Yeah, I guess two people are splitting like, I don't know, this girl told me right after I told her what you were talking about. She said two people won, like, what was it, like $1 billion they're
Oh,
splitting?
really? That's okay. Then that is the big one. Oh, here we're big on the
One, is
radio.
it 1.7 or
It's something
something,
like
she
that.
said.
Good evening, my
That's why I
friends.
thought you asked the question.
No, I didn't know that one. This is Robert Sidell. Welcome you back to the Gateway Show, and I have my dear friends Reverend Janet and Ernie on the line too, the Reverends. And the topic tonight is what would you do if you won the lottery? Now, Janet says the lottery was won. So let me just see. I'm just going
See
to
if
say
you can find it.
I
Does
trust me.
somebody,
I'm positive I can find it. Hold on just a second. Um, let's see. Unfortunately, the way we've got it set up tonight, I don't see the messages people are doing. That's the only problem. So
uh,
I'm gonna need to figure that out. Let's see. Was the big lottery won? Oops. Let's see. It says two tickets win 1.78 billion. Wow.
that's what I said. Yeah, that's what she told me today.
Interesting. That was just posted about 9 hours ago. So it must have been late last night. Huh.
And that is why I thought you asked the question. But you knew already somehow.
That's right. There you go. Two tickets win 1.79 billion. Huh. It says there's nearly 10 million winners across the United States. So it must be the winners are for smaller amounts, I get, obviously, right? I don't know how it works, to be absolutely honest with you.
I
But
don't either.
but anyway, so yeah, that's going to change their lives, isn't it? So actually,
Well, maybe. I don't know. We don't know.
well, I didn't necessarily even say in a positive way. That's the funny part. There's a lot of stories in the past I've studied about people who win lotteries, and sometimes they don't turn out so well because they aren't ready for it, and weird stuff happens. And um, do you want? Let me have Ernie do his prayer, and then we'll talk about this topic a little bit with you too. Okay? So hold on a second,
Okay.
Janet. So Ernie, go ahead and share your prayer with us tonight.
All right. Thank you, Robert. And again, the title of the prayer is, how would you change your life if you won the lottery? And what can you learn from that? Okay. Dear Lord, thank you for this blessed day. Thank you for giving us opportunity to experiencing this life journey. Guide us to be in awareness, focus, and recognition of good happiness when we have won a lottery. Lord, we pray for being with better stewards, to recognize and manage our finances with gratitude. Your divine grace, which is available to all mankind, and transform that grace into good, benefit the winnings with family members, and support those that are in need, such as volunteer organizations who support and help the homeless and other institutions that are in need. We pray for fulfillment of the attributes of good, prosperity, happiness, and love, creating heaven on earth. And so it is. Amen.
Well, thank you, Ernie.
Amen.
And I'm glad you said a prayer for the people that won, because a lot of them need grace,
Yeah.
because sometimes things do happen where people come out of the woodwork and start causing problems. I don't want to say it's always like that, but I've heard of that before. But so I'm glad you said a prayer for them. So it's a little different than I originally thought. All right. Well, Reverend Janet, what do you have to say to us?
So after you sent it, I thought about if I would change, what I would change, and I wrote down some thoughts. So now then I reduced it to priorities that I would have. Okay? If
Uh-huh.
something. Okay?
Yeah.
Number 1, stay true to myself, continue being who I am and doing what I love, which means I keep working because I do love what I do and I think it's good for us as we age to stay working. Um, health and gratitude, protect my well-being and remain thankful for everything that shows up in my life. Um, I would have guided decisions, make my choices with God's guidance and my intuition about anything that I did do with it. Okay, if I had it.
Right.
Love fully, live my purpose of loving and being loved. Peace of mind, stay calm and centered no matter what circumstances showed me. And meaningful actions, do a few thoughtful things I've long considered in alignment with my values. And then I think I put down to one line, I would say, as a mantra, I am grateful, guided, calm, and living in love.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
There you go.
Well, the funny, you know what? That's why it's a fun exercise. They even
It
tell.
is.
I think it's funny when we went into the store to buy it yesterday. One of the tickets yesterday. Actually, it was a fun. I went to this fun liquor stores. It's just a fun place. You don't see much of them like this. It was down in the La Jolla area, and it had every kind of liquor in the world, and huge walls filled with all this stuff. But I was asking the cashier if he finds it an annoyance or it's a good thing because people are coming in to buy those tickets. He sort of felt like it was an annoyance. He says it didn't really improve. He thought it didn't improve their business. Of course, he's an employee. I don't know if the owners would feel the same way, but he said that a lot of people were coming in, and so obviously, I'm sure they sucked in a huge amount of money in the last couple of days because people were excited about that possibility, right?
I'm sure.
It's the same with us. It gets so high, you think, well, gosh, I can spend $10 or $20 or something. If it happened to strike, it would change your life in some way. Now, who knows what it would be? But I think, yeah, the key is, I'd like to think to myself, what can we do with our lives as they are right now? If we think we might want to change them in some ways, how could we change them? What are the changes we need to make? And maybe we don't need all this new money in our lives. Maybe that's the
Right.
real lesson in this story. So for me, anyway, that's what I'm working on. Just what choices would I like to make? What could I do that's different? What could I play? How could I play in my life? More. Like I wear these jackets. Wherever I travel, when I wear these jackets, people always come up to me and say, "Oh, that's a neat jacket." Well, maybe I can play on that level more. Maybe there's some other fun things I can do. So if I start wearing some even more flamboyant clothes, you'll know what happened. But by the way, well, anyway, so Ernie, what do you think you would change in your life?
What do I? I'm sorry. What do I?
What do you think you would change in your life if you won the lottery?
With what I changed in my life with the lottery. You wouldn't believe this. Just a few days ago, 3-4 days ago, my wife Denise, went and got tickets. She drove all the way to Prim, picked up
Oh, that's
some
great.
tickets. Yes. Yeah, and she said, "Well, what are you going to do with winning all that money?" I said, "Oh, well, fine. And it's nice, wonderful to win." But she did buy, but she checked the results on Wednesday. But she didn't win any. But anyway, it was worth it. Driving all the way to Prem. We cannot buy in Las Vegas or Henderson, I
Right.
guess, because it's not. They don't sell them here. The lottery ticket. You had to go there to California or the border.
So we're just running out of time right
border
now.
state.
If you want, you can say we can finish it up just a second. For those of you on the radio, God bless you. This is Robert Sidell. May miracles of joy, peace, and happiness be with you. Remember, miracles are real, love is real, and the best is yet to come. And you two could stay on the phone just a little bit longer. God bless you all. Thanks for joining in tonight with us. This is Robert Sidell. Just a second here. Oh, okay. We're still on just the feed to YouTube and Facebook for a minute longer. So yeah, it's funny. It's the same motivation. She went down, and we did it yesterday. So
Yeah, we checked. Well, we didn't. And she said we didn't win any. Okay, that's fine. You tried.
I read somewhere. I think it's
energy there.
the odds are like 1.8 billion against you or something. I don't know what it is. You have a pretty low chance of winning anything.
Something like that.
But it still doesn't mean it's kind of fun. I wouldn't invest much money in it. I don't know how many people. I don't even think I want to know. Some people might have invested a lot of money for all I know. But it's just who knows, right? But
Or they pool their money together from a family. Sometimes people do that.
Yeah, I've heard those kind of stories a lot too. And those can often lead to a lot of complaints and problems.
I know, I know, but they'll do that, and then then if somebody wins, then it's a problem.
Exactly. That's the point. Well, listen, you know what? I think what I really think, this is my biggest worldview. I think each of you agree with me. We already really have won the lottery. We know that we're the children of a living God, however way you want to describe it. We're in a world that's designed for joy, love, and happiness. And we already know that. So we don't really need to have a lottery to tell us that. But it is sort of fun to think about, because there might be some things that are sitting inside of you that you haven't brought out because you're thinking to yourself, I could never do it. So anyway, well, listen, you guys, both of you, love you both. You're good people. And let's go into this week and become miracle workers wherever we go. And I'll send you some links later on. I'm gonna have to. It's a new thing. Like I said, I can't see the messages on here, so I'll have to talk to Brian about it. But anyway, may God bless us and everybody who happens to ever listen to this recording in the future, and may we be filled with goodness and happiness and joy and love now and forever. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
You guys
Have
have
a
a great.
beautiful week.
Yeah, you too.
Amen.
God bless you both. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.